very much for the warm round of applause. I'm probably the first, maybe one of the few people here today who is not a doctor, but I assure you I play one on TV, so that's fine. Secondly, I just wanted to point out that if you can stay awake through this presentation, I'll do my best to be as engaging as possible, but if you can stay awake through this presentation, right, because I have a hard act to follow with the gentleman before, I will promise you a fix for all of the world's financial problems. I will promise you a 3D, up-close and personal interview with God. So I like to keep the enthusiasm a little bit high, and if you do, you'll get all that fun stuff. So today, I just want to get a show of hands, because I think some people are sort of morning time on a Saturday, and we're all a bit Can I get a show of hands? How many people here are academics? Okay, decent showing of hands. Entrepreneurs? Okay, trickle of a few. Who else do we have? Maybe some parents. Do we have some parents in the room? Yes, okay. I was speaking to one gentleman before whose wife just had a baby this week, and they're going through one of those, oh my God, kind of experiences, like, our lives just changed, what the hell. But what I think is common to all of these people, and indeed probably the most of human activity, is the fact that all of us bring something into the world, whether it's ideas, whether it's businesses, whether it's people, and we have that much in common. I think too, doing this process of creation, we expose ourselves to a number of stresses, and sometimes we don't always anticipate what those might be. So whether it's the baby doing one of those things, or a balance sheet that looks a little bit unbalanced and zeroes kind of all in the wrong places, and we have a friend in the front row who can help fix that for us. We all go through a bit of stress and adjustment at times. And I was having one of these times recently, being an entrepreneur amongst many other things. And I decided after a very long period of time of not having a break, I was going to have a break, right? So I decided I was going to go to Hong Kong, catch up with some friends for a week. I was going to relax in Hong Kong, and yes, I know that's the biggest oxymoronic phrase you could come up with, because you do not relax in Hong Kong. And for those Singaporeans in the room who've been to Hong Kong, they're looking at me going, oh, no. You go to Hong Kong for that? You go to Hong Kong for shopping and eating what? And I'm like, I got lectured after I got back, right? So I'm in Hong Kong, and my friend insists this one night on, oh, we're going to go to this fancy schmancy hotel. I'm like, shit, I don't got money for a fancy schmancy hotel. He's like, don't worry, I pay. I'm like, not going to argue. And we turn up at this hotel, and yes, it is the fancy Amby Schmancy. And we are there, and it's this fantastic view of the park in Kowloon. I'm like, wow. And so I'm kind of exploring this place, and literally it's like cavernous and goes on for ages. I'm like, wow, okay, I guess I made it this time. This is nice. And walking to the bathroom, and I see a bathtub. I'm like, oh damn, we got a bathtub. This is nice. I have not had a bath in years. I'm looking forward to this. I mean, a shower, but I like a bubble bath. It's my guilty pleasure. It's my dirty little secret. Ever since I was 4 and we had the little rubber duckies and shit, I have it all over the bubble bath. It has gotten me through many, many cold nights in Chicago. So I'm getting in this bubble bath as soon as I see it. I am so excited. And right next to this bathtub with this ever-growing, bubbling foam is this console. And it's kind of like, well, what's up with this, right? Like, we got all these buttons and stuff. Bathrooms used to be a lot less complicated when I was a kid. Got a little bit of dials and stuff, and it shoots out the water. But like, what is all of this? So I'm looking at this console, and it's got, volume and this and that, and you can change the lighting and the mood. It's not just about lighting, it's about the mood creation. And much to my chagrin, as I'm sitting there in the bathtub, I realize as I flip a switch that one whole wall goes completely clear, and my friend's looking in at me in the bathroom, and I'm sitting there in the bubble bath. So, I think the bathrooms are a little bit over-engineered. Call it a hunch. I won't even tell you about the toilet. The toilet was just mind-blowing. But, you can adjust the sound and things on this, and as I'm clicking through, I'm like, oh, I can get sound from the TV, and my friend happened to be flipping through stuff as he does. He's a techno geek, and he's just, going nuts with the stuff in the room. And as I'm going to do this, I spy through my now transparent wall what is transpiring in the world around me as I'm relaxing in a bubble bath overlooking the park in Hong Kong. A significant tsunami is taking place. 9.0-ish earthquake. The shoreline of Japan moves approximately 8 feet that way. And the Earth tilts on its axis about 4 inches, if I recall. I don't know, we may have some doctors in the room who can help me out with that. And I'm thinking to myself, oh crap, wow, I mean, I'm actually really quite lucky. I could have chosen to be in Tokyo right now, or God knows, exploring Sendai or some nice coastal areas of Japan, and here I am, luckily in Hong Kong and not in the midst of all of that. Every once so often we get a very subtle reminder that we're all on one planet, and that what has causes also has effects, and that we're not as in control of everything as we'd like to be. Which is kind of a shame, because we're human beings, we're used to being the center of everything, and we're used to thinking that we're so bloody important because we can blog about it, we can tweet about it, and everybody's on Facebook, oh my God, look at me, I just went shopping, it's great. But you know what, the reality is, at the end of the day, they can still mess you up. Just little things like that, they can really mess you up. We're used to thinking about the world around us in a very divorced manner, and it's sort of like, oh yeah, Earth, it's sort of like, oh, over there, somewhere kind of off on the horizon, I think, oh yeah, you know, the planet, it's kind of like distant. But I think the reality is that even if you're looking at this outside your window, you know, the environment is something that is all around us. It's actually more like our environment. And as you play with the language, I mean, you start to think through, maybe the relationship that humans have with our environment is shaped so much by that language. I mean, think about it, right? If you're talking about other things that aren't so much to do with planetary measures, but like, let's say you're talking about money, because we all relate to money quite well, and I got a $5 in my pocket at the moment. The words the money versus my money. Just think about the implications and differences of that subtle change just for a moment. The wife, my wife. The baby, my baby. You know, it changes your relationship with whatever you're talking about. And right now, it's so common, and again, doing editorial work and writing, you hear about it all the time, it's like the planet, the Earth, the environment, the thing that's over there that has nothing to do with it, even though we're the ones eating it, drinking it, breathing it, working in it every day. And our relationship changes because our mind shift changes. This is probably a bit more accurate in terms of how we should be viewing the environment, right? Our environment. We're walking through it, it's affecting us, it's burning that poor woman in the foreground. I think a baby shark has just come in and is going after that guy in the background. You know, it's something that we work in the context of, but yet we don't kind of get that. We kind of get divorced from that, and especially being in an urban environment, because we don't have those pleasant reminders of green eco spaces that we saw earlier. So, our journey on a day-to-day basis, we need to start thinking through our relationship with the world around us and how we experience our everyday lives and our interactions on a very, very basic level with our environment. Now, our world is taking some really, I would say, difficult turns in the next few years, and I'm going to highlight several problems that I think are quite critical. Certainly there's many others in terms of financial challenges, in terms of terrorism and so forth, but I think these sort of 4 areas will be helping to guide our thinking and shape the way that events unfold. So the first will be population, and the projections to 2050 are something in the vicinity of, we're going to round up with 9 billion people on the planet. And many people think that only 2 billion could be safely supported, and especially at the rate we're consuming everything. According to Earth Policy Institute, you have approximately 219,000 people showing up every day that weren't here yesterday at the dinner table, who want to eat like you do, who want to have, you know, that safety and that satisfaction and that good food to eat, but we don't even have the food to feed all the people now very successfully. Where are these people going to get fed from? And this is not just one night, this is not just a one-off experience, this is going to go on and on and on into the years ahead, through 2050. That's a big thing to deal with. Of course, the knock-on effects of this is you have more people competing for less and less stuff. So we like to think that there's this growth curve that's going to go on forever and that we can just keep repeating things and technology is going to find a way and maybe it'll help us out of some challenges, but raw materials got to come from somewhere, right? And if we're consuming all of that at a huge rate, how is this picture going to work? Well, the reality is that it's going to lead to a lot of conflict, and you're already seeing bits of that happen around the world. Struggles for resources, call it oil, call it water, you name it. I mean, there's any number of things that could become a flashpoint, depending on where you live. and what's critical to your day-to-day survival. And it's survival that is ultimately quite at stake here. And alongside this, of course, is that heavily discussed topic of climate change, which, I mean, you see wildfires, you see all sorts of weather anomalies starting to crop up, but yet people are still burying their head in the sand. Policy's really not shifting that fast. And all of these things are going to be game changers. So you have a very, very fragile human reality that, again, if we're working in our glass towers downtown, we sort of forget about. All those problems are out there somewhere. It's kind of disconnected. I'm going to lunch. It doesn't matter. You know, let somebody else deal with it. But we're not dealing with it as a species. We're not dealing with it as humanity. And it's going to be a huge challenge. We can't let that become the look on our face. I'm not trying to be all gloom and doom here, right? But I got to admit, right now, we're kind of like the guy who's watching TV back here, watching American Idol, right? He's all chilled out, like, yeah, she's going, I don't know, the last guy was better. But kind of feeling like, oh, the ground's rumbling, right? Should I go check it out? Should I go do something? No, I'll just stay here watching TV. And I think what we're in for with all of these issues is something like that that's coming at us, and it's going to blindside a lot of people. It's going to become a real challenge. We have to reshape the way that we do things. We have to reshape the systems and the language that form our reality. And I think it's a very simple equation, really. Language form the concepts, concepts form the reality. So like I was talking about earlier in terms of the environment versus our environment, there's a pretty profound difference there. How many other things carry that significant weight? How many other things can we rethink and need to rethink in this context? So, one word that I do a lot of work with is sustainability. And this is a very noble word. Everybody likes to throw it around, everybody from bleach companies to arms manufacturers and you name it in between. Government likes it because it sounds really safe and like we're doing something. Definitions vary. This ability to endure. You know, it kind of sounds all right, I mean, who could disagree with that? Meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet its own needs. Noble intention, but it's not particularly inspiring yet. And it goes on, and it goes on. You get variations of this, and I don't know, at the end of it, it all just kind of boils down to being less bad. I mean, after how many years of human evolution, right? Is that the best we can aspire to, just being less bad, just being a little bit more efficient, just kind of toning it down a little bit, you know, not kind of completely destroying the place, just kind of largely destroying the place. It's all right, it's cool, it's sustainable for a while, maybe less and less years as time goes on. But I think the reality is that we're never going to solve these problems, we're never going to start to solve these problems unless we shift that less bad mentality. Less bad's going to kick us in the ass, and it already is. So what are we going to do? Well, let me show you an example of how sustainability can be warped, and we'll talk about what can happen next. We define sustainability as the capacity to endure as a group by renewing assets, creating and delivering better products and services that meet the evolving needs of our society. Corporate comms had a field day with this. Attracting successive generations of employees, contributing to a sustainable environment, and retaining the trust and support of our customers, shareholders, and communities in which we operate. Oh, shit. That was from BP's sustainability report. Oops. And if you thought your job sucked, you could be that guy. Flawed concept. That's not what we need. We don't need language and rhetoric, we need genuine change. So all of us are having to be a part of that. But still, we need to get away from this mentality that somehow, oh, the environment's such a burden. Oh, you know, we're the center of the universe and everything revolves around us, because we're not, and it's not inconvenient. The environment that we live in, that we breathe in every day, needs to be something we take into account. It needs to be something we embrace, and we need to do more good in that picture. It's not okay to be less bad. It's not okay for business as usual. Business as usual is shooting us in the foot. To draw a really easy metaphor, glass of water, is it half full or half empty, right? I mean, you've all been through this at some point in your lives, possibly recently. But what we're doing now in terms of sustainability is just draining that glass, so there's less and less and less, but we're doing it very efficiently, so it's okay. what we need to be doing is filling it up and making sure it stays filled up and finding ways to keep it filled up, because that's ultimately what's going to lead us to a much more stable future, and what we're not doing very well right now. I think humanity is a very, very critical point in its evolution, and one that is going to make or break us. And I like to think that given our thousands of years on the planet here that we live in, we have the ability, allegedly, to use our minds to do great things. So perhaps we could start by actually solving the problems. Perhaps this is our great calling and our great challenge, is if the world around us is communicating and saying, hey, we need to do something differently, well, we're going to go whoop, into the annals of history and join the dinosaurs. It's thrive or die, and I really think the key word is thrive. Because it's something that's aspirational, it's something you can't half-ass, it's something that actually gives people some meaning, and it's something that happens in nature all around us anyway. Whether you have a baby that you've just given birth to or go for a walk in a forest, you see that all around you. You see that growth, that change, that energy that just exudes. It's something that we can all tap into as human beings because we've all come from it and we all embody it in some way, shape, or form still, even though we may work in a high-rise. When you walk through a forest, for example, trees, right? They're dropping leaves, they have insects coming up on them, they have things eating their fruit and dropping their seeds somewhere else. They don't sit there with the human preoccupations of, oh, I need to do a full cost crunching on this, and I need to do something about that, and oh, the bird has been there way too long, I should charge him more. It's a bit different scenario. This thing is thriving, it's doing what it does, it's doing it naturally, it's doing it almost without thinking. It's a beautiful process. And it's something that I think we need to mimic. And there's plenty of people and ideas and books and projects out there that have a similar tangent to it. I've had the joy of interviewing some of these people and or hearing their talks or visiting their projects or reading their books, and it's incredibly inspirational. And this is just a thumbnail of what's out there. I mean, there are some absolutely brilliant people working to solve the challenges of our time. And we need to get on board with what they're doing. We need to help them perfect it. And we need to take it steps further. And I'm trusting that with the bright people assembled in this room, as a step one, that should not be a problem. So go out there and whatever you're doing, absorb something that carries this thrivability theme. Find other things that appeal to you and run with it. I love her. The thing is, another thing, beyond the projects that are out there, there's generations that are luckily still around who don't, how can I say it, they have a greater appreciation for a world before the consumerist lifestyles that we live today. They have a remembrance of when food and family and the basics were the most important thing, and they also remember what it was like to struggle to get them. We need to reconnect with these people and understand so much about their rich history and their experience and their understanding and their mindset, and take that with us in the years ahead before they're gone. Because I think this will ultimately help us determine, too, how we survive. These people have done it. These people have been through some incredibly hard times. And while you're at it, though, ask Grandma why she's got my goggles. So are you going to be a part of the solution, or are you going to be a part of the problem? I mean, it boils down to that. Are you going to be one of those people who sticks your head back into the sand after this talk and pretends that like life goes on as normal? That, oh yeah, he was nice, the orange side's pretty and all that, but you know, nothing really fundamentally moves for you. Or are you actually going to take this into your day-to-day lives? And I mean, I know in these talks it's like, well, you have to leave them with a sense of what they can do. You have to empower them. Well, okay, there's 7-something billion people on the planet. Am I going to like go around to each one of you and give you a shopping list? I mean, get onto it your own way. But the sort of major criteria that we're looking at is about resiliency on our planet, right? It's about enhancing our environment. It's about fixing what's been damaged and making it thrive to the best that it can. We need to get onto that. When it comes to society, we need to create a vibrant, healthy community of people. Nature doesn't have unemployment. Why do we? Why should we? Why should we tolerate that? A lot of the economics that we're working with is utterly flawed. Yes, there's a certain amount of it that boils down to human behavior and evolution and the way we think, as we heard from an earlier speaker. Some parts of us are just innate in this, but we need to evolve those things. We need to make sure that human culture can actually continue to have a future and define very brightly what that future is going to be. We need to work to create a just and stable economy that incorporates people, offers opportunities, and helps us move to solve problems, and not exasperate them. I think that this young woman's words were probably the most apt, because often when you're working in this space, when you're talking about these sustainability issues, people think, oh, another gloom and doomer, another greenie, a hair-shirt hippie, da 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 da. I mean, the list goes on, and thankfully that perception is starting to shift. But I want to leave you with a token of optimism that I think really it's up to all of us. And she's just probably one of the latest examples of people who has said, no, you know what, I don't like the situation as it is now. I'm going to go out as me, myself, and I, with whatever resources I do and don't have, go out into the world and actually take a stand on something. And while there may be some people who fail, there are plenty of people who succeed to some very brilliant ends. And this young woman helped change the political future of Egypt. And she's no better or worse than any one of you and I in this room. A living, breathing human being. So I think the final closer is that tomorrow doesn't need to be another yesterday. We really don't need to repeat the same mistakes over and over again, and that there's an opportunity to really make a difference, a tangible difference as each one of us. The message is not to go green. The message is not to be less bad. The message is to be a positive person making a difference in our world around us and to go thrive. Thank you.